The massive alien ship appeared above Earth without warning. It was larger than any city and darker than the space around it. The ship blocked out the sun as it moved into position over North America. People around the world stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky in fear and wonder. Commander Zethkari stood on the bridge of the vessel called Sovereign's Voice. His forearms moved across glowing control panels as he prepared the transmission that would change everything. For the small blue planet below, his species had done this many times before with other worlds. The process was always the same. Demand surrender and wait for the inevitable compliance. On Earth, President William Carter was in a meeting when his aide burst through the door. The young man's face was pale and his hands shook as he handed the president a tablet. Every television station on Earth was showing the same image. Every radio was playing the same message. Every internet connection was carrying the same transmission. The alien voice was cold and mechanical when it spoke. It had learned human languages in the few hours since arriving. The message was simple and terrifying. Earth had 72 hours to surrender complete control of their planet to the Galactic Council. All weapons must be destroyed. All spaceships must be grounded. All governments must step down and allow council governors to take control. If Earth refused these demands, they would face what the aliens called corrective measures. The transmission showed images of other worlds that had been corrected. Cities turned to glass. Oceans boiled away. Entire continents reduced to smoking craters. The message was clear. Submit or die. President Carter called an emergency meeting with his top advisors. Defense Secretary Lisa Morgan was the first to arrive at the White House Situation Room. Her military uniform was pressed and perfect, but her eyes showed the strain of the moment. Admiral Jack Sullivan came next with his weathered face set in grim determination. These two had served their country for decades, but nothing had prepared them for this. Dr. Amanda Price hurried into the room carrying a stack of files and a laptop computer. She was Earth's leading expert on alien technology and had been studying recovered alien artifacts for years. Her work had been classified at the highest levels, and even the president had only learned about it recently. The room filled with more officials as the gravity of the situation became clear. General Tony Blake entered with maps and tactical assessments. His career had been built on preparing for every possible threat, but an alien invasion had seemed like science fiction until now. President Carter looked around the table at the faces of his advisors. These were good people who had dedicated their lives to protecting America and the world. Now they faced an enemy that could destroy their planet without breaking stride. Dr. Price opened her laptop and began showing satellite images of the alien ship. The vessel was 3 times longer than Manhattan and bristled with weapons that Earth scientists could barely understand. She had been tracking similar ships for months as they moved through the outer solar system, but none had been this large or this close. The doctor pulled up files from her classified research. For 20 years, she had been studying crashed alien vehicles and recovered technology. Most people thought the government had found nothing, but Dr. Price knew better. They had learned enough to know how outmatched Earth really was. Admiral Sullivan spread naval charts across the table, even though they seemed pointless now. His ships could not reach space, and the aliens showed no interest in Earth's oceans. Still, he began calculating response times and defensive positions out of habit and hope. General Blake was more direct in his assessment. Earth's military could not fight the aliens in any conventional sense. Their technology was centuries ahead of human capabilities. Any direct confrontation would be suicide for the human forces and massacre for civilian populations. The president listened to each advisor, give their analysis. The situation was worse than he had imagined. Earth had no way to fight back against the alien threat. No way to protect their people from the promised corrective measures. No way to maintain their independence if they submitted to alien rule. Dr. Price cleared her throat and asked for permission to speak privately with the president. The others looked surprised, but Carter nodded and asked them to step outside. When the room was empty, the doctor opened a different file on her computer dock. She told the president about Project Phoenix. It was the most classified program in human history. For decades, the government had been preparing for this exact scenario. The crashed alien ships had provided more than just knowledge. They had provided blueprints and materials for building Earth's own advanced fleet, hidden facilities. Throughout the solar system had been constructing warships using reverse-engineered alien technology. The ships were small compared to the Council vessels, but they incorporated human engineering and human tactics. More importantly, they carried weapons that the aliens had never seen before. The president stared at the images on the screen. 12. Sleek warships waited in secret locations throughout the system. Each one was crewed by volunteers who had trained in absolute secrecy for this moment. They were Earth's only hope for maintaining their freedom. Carter asked how long it would take to activate Phoenix. Dr. Price said the ships could be ready within hours. The crews were already at their stations and the weapons were charged. They had been waiting for this day since the project began. The president walked to the window and looked up at the alien ship hanging in the sky like a dark omen. His people deserved the right to choose their own fate. America had been founded on the principle that freedom was worth fighting for no matter the odds. He turned back to Dr. Price and told her to activate Project Phoenix. Then he called his advisors back into the room. The next few hours would determine whether humanity would kneel before alien masters or stand up for their right to be free. General Blake began mobilizing Earth's defense forces even though conventional weapons would be useless. Admiral Sullivan started coordinating with naval forces around the world. Dr. Price sent coded messages to the Phoenix crews telling them to prepare for immediate deployment. As the 72-hour deadline approached, President Carter made his decision. He would address the world and give humanity's answer to the alien ultimatum. It would not be the answer the Galactic Council expected. It would be the answer of a free people who refused to surrender their independence to any enemy. No matter how powerful, the stage was set for humanity's greatest challenge and their finest hour. President Carter stood before the cameras in the White House briefing room as the entire world watched. Every television station had cleared their schedules for this moment. Every person on Earth knew that their future hung on the words their leader was about to speak. The alien deadline was only 6 hours away. Behind him stood the American flag and the flag of the United Nations. His speech had been written by his chief advisor Helen Ross, who had worked through the night to find the right words. But Carter had added his own thoughts to the final version. These were words that came from his heart as much as his mind. The president looked directly into the camera and began to speak. His voice was calm but firm as he addressed not just America but all of humanity. He said that Earth had received the alien ultimatum and considered it carefully. He said that the people of Earth understood the consequences of their decision. Then President Carter did something that shocked the alien fleet waiting in space above. Instead of announcing surrender, he declared that humanity rejected the Galactic Council's demands completely. He said that Earth would not bow down to alien masters. He said that freedom was worth fighting for no matter the cost. The president's words grew stronger as he continued. He declared that humanity had the right to govern themselves and defend their world. He announced that Earth was formally declaring war on the Galactic Council. The human race would stand together against tyranny from the stars. Aboard the alien flagship, Commander Zethkari watched the transmission with growing disbelief. In over 1,000 years of Council expansion, no species had ever dared to declare war on them. Most surrendered immediately when they saw the size of Council fleets. The few that resisted usually gave up after the first demonstration of Council power. The alien commander called his superiors to report this unprecedented development. Council Overseer Velter listened to the report with 4 of his 6 eyes focused on tactical displays. The idea that humans would choose to fight rather than submit seemed impossible to understand. Velter had conquered 47 worlds during his long career. He had seen species with technology far advanced beyond humanity choose surrender over destruction. The fact that these primitive humans thought they could challenge Council authority was either madness or complete ignorance of their situation on Earth. The president's declaration triggered immediate action across the planet. Secret facilities. that had been hidden for decades suddenly came to life. Project Phoenix was no longer a classified program, but humanity's only hope for survival. Colonel Steve Murphy stood in the command center of the most secret military base ever built. The facility was located inside a hollowed-out asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. For 15 years, Murphy had prepared for this day while hoping it would never come. Around him, dozens of technicians worked at control stations, linked to 12 advanced warships scattered throughout the solar system. Each ship had been built using technology reverse-engineered from alien crashes and human innovation. They were humanity's secret weapons against impossible odds. Captain Nicole Barnes received the activation order while standing on the bridge of her ship, the EDS Defiance. The vessel was hidden behind one of Saturn's moons where alien sensors could not detect it. Her crew of 200 volunteers had trained for years in absolute secrecy for this moment. Barnes was a career naval officer who had commanded submarines before being recruited for Project Phoenix. She understood the value of stealth and surprise in fighting a superior enemy. Her ship and its 11 sister vessels would need every advantage they could find. Lieutenant Ryan Cole sat at the tactical station aboard the Defiance studying alien fleet positions. The young officer had graduated first in his class from the Naval Academy before volunteering for the Phoenix program. His job was to coordinate attacks between the human ships spread across the solar system. Cole's screens showed the positions of all 12 human vessels. They were hidden near planets and asteroids where the aliens would not expect to find them. The element of surprise would only last for the first few minutes of combat, but those minutes might be enough. Amanda Price worked frantically in her laboratory, analyzing the latest intelligence about the alien fleet. Her instruments had been scanning the Council ships since they arrived, and she had discovered important information about their capabilities and weaknesses. The alien vessels were powerful, but they had limitations. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons and projectiles, but had never been tested against some of the exotic weapons that human engineers had developed. Their sensors were focused on detecting known threats and might miss something completely new. Dr. Price sent her analysis to Colonel Murphy, who forwarded it to all Phoenix ships. The human crews now had detailed information about alien weapon ranges and shield frequencies. It was not much of an advantage, but it was better than fighting completely blind. General Tony Blake coordinated with military leaders around the world as conventional forces prepared for battle. Everyone knew that tanks and fighter jets could not reach the alien ships in space, but ground forces would be needed if the aliens landed troops on Earth. The general had another role that few people knew about. If Project Phoenix failed, he was responsible for activating humanity's final option. Nuclear weapons had been modified with alien technology to penetrate Council shields. It was a desperate last resort that would cause massive destruction on Earth, but might hurt the aliens enough to make them reconsider their conquest. Meanwhile, engineer Paul Davis worked in mission control at Cape Canaveral activating orbital defense platforms that had been disguised as communication satellites for years. The platforms carried weapons based on alien technology but powered by human fusion reactors. They would provide covering fire for the Phoenix ships during the coming battle. As the alien deadline approached, both sides prepared for conflict. The Council fleet moved into attack formation, expecting to face primitive human resistance that could be crushed within hours. They had no idea that humanity had been preparing for this war longer than some of their crew members had been alive. President Carter returned to the Situation Room where his advisors waited for updates from around the world. Helen Ross showed him reports of support from every major nation on Earth. Humanity was united for the first time in history because they faced a threat that endangered their entire species. The president looked at the countdown clock showing time until the alien deadline. In less than 1 hour, the Galactic Council would learn that humanity was not like other species they had conquered. Earth would fight back with everything they had and show the galaxy what human determination could accomplish when freedom was at stake. The war was about to begin. The 72-hour deadline passed at exactly noon Eastern Standard Time. Commander Zethkari waited 5 additional minutes before giving the order that would demonstrate Council power to the defiant humans below. His weapons officer targeted the lunar surface with a plasma cannon designed to level mountains. The beam of superheated energy struck the moon and created a crater, visible from Earth without telescopes. The explosion sent chunks of lunar rock flying into space while the crater glowed white-hot against the gray surface. It was meant to be a warning that would make the humans reconsider their foolish declaration of war on Earth. Billions of people watched the destruction through telescopes and live television feeds. The message was clear to everyone who saw it. The aliens could do the same thing to any city on the planet whenever they chose. Most people expected their governments to surrender immediately after such a display of overwhelming power. But President Carter had made his decision and would not change course now. The alien attack on the moon was an act of war against Earth, and humanity would respond accordingly. He gave the activation order for Project Phoenix, and 12 human warships began moving toward their enemy. Captain Nicole Barnes felt her ship vibrate as the engines came to full power for the first time in combat conditions. The EDS Defiance accelerated away from its hiding place behind Saturn's rings and began the long journey toward Earth. Her crew had trained for this moment, but now it was real, and their lives depended on everything working perfectly. Lieutenant Ryan Cole tracked the positions of all Phoenix ships on his tactical display. The human fleet was spread across the solar system and would converge on the alien formation from multiple directions. It was a classic pincer movement that would force the enemy to divide their attention. Between several threats, the alien fleet remained in high orbit above Earth, confident that they faced no real danger from human technology. Their sensors had detected some small vessels moving in the outer system but dismissed them as civilian ships fleeing the battle zone. The Council had faced desperate resistance before, and it never lasted long. Commander Zethkari prepared to begin bombardment of Earth's major cities when his sensor operator reported something unexpected. The small human vessels were not fleeing but approaching at high speed on attack vectors. More disturbing was the fact that their energy signatures did not match any known human technology. The first human ship to reach weapon range was the EDS Liberty, commanded by Captain Dan Foster. His vessel had been hidden near Mars and arrived at the battle zone ahead of the other Phoenix ships. Foster's orders were to begin the attack immediately and draw alien attention away from Earth's orbital defenses. Captain Foster gave the order to fire when his ship reached optimal range. The Liberty's main weapon was a quantum torpedo that could phase through most types of energy shields. The projectile appeared as a small blue star racing toward the largest alien vessel in the enemy formation. The quantum torpedo passed through the Council ship's shields as if they were not there and struck the hull directly. The explosion tore a massive hole in the alien vessel's armor and caused secondary explosions throughout its interior. Emergency lights flickered across the ship's surface as atmosphere vented into space through the breach. Commander Zethkari stared in shock at the damage display, showing his flagship had been seriously injured by a single human weapon. The energy readings from the attack showed technology that should not exist on such a primitive world. His tactical officer reported that more human ships were approaching from different directions. The EDS Defiance arrived next, with Captain Barnes ordering immediate engagement of the alien formation. Her ship carried adaptive armor that learned from enemy weapons and became stronger with each hit. The technology was based on alien materials but improved by human engineering and creativity. Lieutenant Cole coordinated the attack as more Phoenix ships joined the battle. Each human vessel carried different experimental weapons designed to exploit weaknesses in alien technology. Some used gravity manipulation to crush enemy hulls, while others fired streams of antimatter that burned through any known material. The Council fleet tried to respond, but their weapons were designed to fight enemies using similar technology. Human ships moved in unpredictable patterns and used tactics that seemed completely random. Worst of all, their weapons penetrated Council defenses that had protected alien fleets for centuries. Captain Sarah Brooks commanded the EDS Freedom, which carried the most dangerous human weapon ever built. Her ship launched a swarm of microscopic robots that attached themselves to enemy vessels and began eating through their hulls at the molecular level. The nanobots were invisible to alien sensors and unstoppable once they reached their targets. 3. More Council ships suffered critical damage as human weapons found their marks. The aliens had expected easy victory against primitive opponents, but instead found themselves fighting for their lives against technology they did not understand. Their formation began to break apart as captains tried to avoid the mysterious human attacks. Commander Zethkari ordered his remaining ships to retreat to a safer distance while he reassessed the tactical situation. The humans had somehow developed weapons that could penetrate Council defenses, and their ships moved with impossible speed and agility. This was not the quick demonstration of power he had planned. Dire Amanda Price monitored the battle from her command center on Earth and smiled as she watched alien ships withdraw from the immediate area around the planet. Her analysis of Council technology had been correct, and human innovations were proving effective against their supposedly superior enemy. Engineer Paul Davis activated Earth's orbital defense platforms as the battle moved closer to the planet. The disguised satellites revealed their true nature as weapons platforms and began firing support beams at the Phoenix ships. The combined human forces were now working together in perfect coordination. General Tony Blake watched tactical displays from his Pentagon Command Center and allowed himself a moment of hope. The initial engagement had gone better than anyone dared expect. Human casualties were light while alien losses were mounting. But he knew this was only the beginning of a much larger war. President Carter received updates from the battle and felt pride in the courage of the Phoenix crews. They were fighting impossible odds with determination and skill that honored the best traditions of human military service. But he also knew the aliens would not give up after one defeat. Commander Zethkari regrouped his surviving ships and sent an emergency message to Council headquarters. He reported that humanity possessed advanced weapons and tactics that posed a genuine threat to Council forces. He requested immediate reinforcements and authorization to use maximum force against the human homeworld. The first battle was over, but both sides knew the war had only just begun. The news of humanity's victory reached every world in the Galactic Council within hours. For the first time in over 800 years, a primitive species had defeated Council forces in open battle. Panic spread through the homeworlds as citizens realized their mighty fleet was not invincible after all. Council Supreme Overlord Kethmos called an emergency session of the ruling body on the capital world of Zentara. Representatives from 12 different alien species gathered in the Great Chamber where decisions affecting billions of lives were made. The mood was dark and fearful as reports of the Earth battle were discussed. The Supreme Overlord's rage filled the chamber as he spoke about the human defiance. No species had ever dared to fight back against Council authority and won. If word spread that the mighty Council could be defeated, other worlds might begin to rebel against their rule. The human threat had to be crushed completely and quickly. Overlord Kethmos authorized the deployment of the 7th Battle Fleet to Earth immediately. Over 200 warships representing the combined military might of the entire Council would show these upstart humans the price of challenging galactic order. The fleet would leave nothing alive on the human homeworld. On Earth, the celebration of their first victory was brief. Long-range sensors detected the massive alien reinforcement fleet moving toward the solar system at incredible speed. The enemy Armada was 20 times larger than anything humanity had ever faced and would arrive within days. Admiral Jack Sullivan studied the tactical projections in the Pentagon War Room and shook his head grimly. Even if every Phoenix ship performed perfectly, they could not hope to defeat such overwhelming numbers through conventional battle tactics. Humanity needed a completely different approach to survive what was coming. Captain Nicole Barnes received new orders while her damaged ship underwent emergency repairs at a hidden facility near Jupiter. The Phoenix fleet would not meet the alien armada in direct combat, but would use hit and run tactics designed to divide and confuse the enemy forces throughout the solar system. Dr. Amanda Price made a discovery that changed everything when she analyzed intercepted alien communications. The massive Council fleet was not composed entirely of willing participants. Many of the alien species serving in Council ships were conquered races forced to fight for their oppressors under threat of planetary destruction. The Doctor brought her findings to President Carter, who immediately saw the implications if humanity could convince some of the alien species to turn against the Council. The entire political structure of the galaxy might collapse. It was a desperate gamble, but their only hope against impossible odds. Lieutenant Ryan Cole worked with communication specialists to develop a new strategy based on Dr. Price's intelligence. Instead of just fighting the alien fleet, they would broadcast messages to the oppressed species serving in Council ships. The transmissions would reveal the truth about Council tyranny and offer hope for freedom. Meanwhile, civilian engineer Karen White led a crash program to convert every available human spacecraft into improvised warships. Mining ships and cargo haulers were fitted with whatever weapons could be found. Even small pleasure craft were armed with missiles and sent to join the defense of Earth. The conversion project took place in shipyards around Earth and throughout the solar system. Thousands of volunteers worked around the clock to create a fleet of improvised defenders. The ships were not powerful, but they would add numbers to humanity's small professional navy. Captain Don Foster commanded one of the Phoenix ships assigned to reconnaissance duty beyond Plateau. His sensors detected the approaching Council armada while it was still days away from Earth. The enemy fleet was larger than entire cities and bristled with enough weapons to sterilize a dozen worlds. Foster transmitted detailed intelligence about the alien formation back to Earth Command. The Council fleet was arranged in traditional battle groups, with each species maintaining separate formations within the larger armada. This separation might be exploited by clever human tactics. Lieutenant Emma Garcia worked in the communication center developing propaganda broadcasts aimed at the enslaved alien species. Her team had learned the languages of several Council member races and crafted messages designed to inspire rebellion against their oppressors. The broadcasts began as soon as the alien fleet entered the outer solar system. Human transmissions reached every ship in the Council armada carrying messages of hope and freedom. The communications revealed that Earth was fighting for the liberation of all enslaved worlds, not just human independence. Some of the alien species began to listen to the human messages with growing interest. Races like the Kalari and the Vorthak had been conquered centuries ago and forced to serve Council interests ever since. They had forgotten what freedom felt like, but the humans reminded them. With their defiant example, General Tony Blake coordinated with military leaders around the world as Earth's defenses prepared for the largest battle in human history. Every available weapon was aimed at the sky, while civilian populations moved to underground shelters that might protect them from orbital bombardment. The general also made final preparations for humanity's ultimate weapon if all else failed. Modified nuclear devices with alien technology enhancements had been distributed throughout the solar system. If Earth fell, these weapons would ensure the Council paid a heavy price for their victory. Engineer Paul Davis completed the deployment of additional orbital defense platforms around Earth and its moon. The weapon satellites looked like civilian infrastructure but carried enough firepower to seriously damage approaching enemy vessels. They would provide covering fire for the Phoenix fleet during the coming battle. Diplomat Richard Hayes worked with the United Nations to coordinate surrender terms if the battle went badly. His job was to negotiate for civilian lives if military resistance collapsed. But privately, Hayes hoped the diplomatic option would never be needed. Captain Sarah Brooks prepared her ship, the EDS Freedom, for what might be humanity's final battle. Her crew had volunteered knowing they might not survive the war, but they were determined to make their sacrifice count. If Earth fell, they would take as many alien ships with them as possible. President Carter addressed the world one final time before the enemy fleet arrived. He told humanity that they had already proven their courage by standing up to galactic tyranny. Win or lose, they had shown that freedom was worth fighting for, and their example would inspire others across the galaxy. As the massive Council Armada approached Earth, both sides prepared for a battle that would determine the fate of human civilization, and possibly change the balance of power throughout the galaxy forever.